Hi, welcome to the Global Politics series. Name is Understanding Global Politics. Today we are going to cover the topic of refugee, asylum seeker, immigrant and migrant. This is the topic which we usually get confused, right? So today we would be understanding just the terminologies of these terms. So let's get started with this. Refugee. First one is refugee. Is someone who has been forced to flee his or her home because of war, violence and persecution, often without warning. That is called refugee. They are unable to return home unless and until conditions in their native lands are safe for them again. Okay, so that's called refugee. An official entity such as a government or the United Nations Refugee Agency determines whether a person seeking international protection meets the definition of a refugee based on well-founded fear. Clear? This is called refugee. Now let's move on, and the second term, it's asylum seeker. Is someone who is also seeking international protection from dangers in his or her home country, but whose claim for refugee status has not been determined legally. I hope you understood the difference between refugee and asylum seeker. Refugee is someone who is fleeing, right? Because in her country there is a war, violence, persecution. And asylum seeker is the person who is seeking international protection, right? The same thing, where his or her country also having dangers, right? So this is asylum seeker. Asylum seekers must apply for protection in the country of destination where they are reaching, that's host country, meaning they must arrive at or cross a border in order to apply. Then they must be able to prove to authorities there that they meet the criteria to be covered by refugee protections. Not every asylum seeker will be recognized as a refugee. I hope you understood this one, right? Now, the next one is immigrant. Immigrant is someone who makes a conscious decision to leave his or her home. So that means conscious decision and move to a foreign country with the intention of settling there. So that means immigrants often go through a lengthy vetting process to immigrate to a new country. Many become lawful permanent residents and eventually citizens, right? So this is called immigrant. Now the last one we have migrant. Migrant is someone who is moving from place to place within his or her country or across borders, usually for economic reasons such as seasonal work. Similar to immigrant, they were not forced to leave their native countries because of persecution or violence, but rather are seeking better opportunities. Many of those crossing the US border from Central American countries, El Salvador, Guatemala and Honduras, are in fact asylum seekers, not migrants. They have a well-founded fear of persecution if they were to return home. I hope you understood the difference between refugee, asylum seeker, immigrant and migrant. I hope this video was informative for you. See you in the next class.